Okay. All right. We're probably already live, right? And here we go. Yeah. Hey, everybody. Oh, look at my hair. It's all feathery. Okay. Is it less feathery now? Guys, how is the audio? Is one of us louder than the other? Hey, guys. Anybody? Okay. All right. We're live. Everybody, welcome to... There's no audio? Nobody can hear... Can everyone hear Armin as well? Armin, say testing, testing. Okay, now say testicle, testicle, testicle. Okay, what about Armin? Can you guys hear Armin? Can't hear Armin.
Second, sorry about this.
Armin knew it, guys.
All right, now.
Until then. Can you guys hear Armin now? So keep on talking. I have to keep on talking.
Testing. 1, 2, 3.
Say Allahu Akbar, Alhamdulillah.
All right, I think there's a little bit delay. I think very soon they're going to see they hear me because now I can see.
They're going to see?
Yeah.
You just did. Armin, say something else.
Yep. Hello.
Just heard Allah Samad. Lam yalid
walam yulad walam yakun lahu kufuwan ahad.
Walam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. You got it wrong. You changed the word of God. Jesus. How did you do it? Okay. You can hear him, but up your mic volume.
You know the Qul huwa Allahu ahad, that's a favorite verse in prayers because it's short and sweet, right?
Yeah. Hey, listen, you got to turn up your volume.
Me?
Oh, hey, George. How's it going? Yeah, he's saying that your volume is too low. So just turn up your mic volume.
It's max, so I have to just be like, this is a new maybe I think yours is too loud.
I've got mine on the recording thing. Guys, just give us just a second. I'm going to fix stuff here. Hold on.
No, both sound fine. Both sound fine. I'm just going to be like really close to the mic.
Both sounds fine?
Yeah.
Okay.
Somebody said both.
Hold on. Just a second.
2 years in
I'm going to microphone settings. Yeah, I can't really set my levels. It's just automatically adjust.
I'm going to bring down your level.
Oh, no, I'm bringing down. Can you see how my levels come down now? Can you hear it lower now?
I don't know. All right, guys, Is this okay? Just let us know if it's okay.
Is this okay? I've brought my volume down quite a bit. Okay, great. Excellent.
Okay.
All right, sounds good.
All right.
Start?
Yeah, start.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another very special Ask Us Anything episode of Secular Jihadists for a Muslim Enlightenment. My name is Ali Rizvi, and with me is Armin Navabi. Armin, how's it going? How's your evening?
Not bad.
Today?
Not bad.
Bang. Okay, that's small talk.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, there's a couple of, before we start the questions and taking questions from you guys, just a couple of announcements. First of all, our website is live, secularjihadist.com. So do go and check it out. If you're hearing us for the first time, or even if you're somewhat familiar with us, we have you can go to the website secularjihadist.com, and that way you can also go to our Patreon, which is patreon.com/sjme. And if you sign up as a patron, you can see video conversations of all of our episodes. And some of our episodes, they include interviews with people like Maajid Nawaz, with Sarah Haider, with Steven Pinker recently, Matt Dillahunty, and a lot of wonderful ex-Muslims from around the world that we speak to very, very often. So do check that out. Again, secularjihadist.com. A second announcement is many of you who are patrons must have seen Armin's interview with our patron and our really good friend Obaid Omar. And it was on the
did
recent...
the second one as well, but that one was private.
That one was private. So it was about that one was about the Catholic Church. So with our patrons, we are starting to get a roll on the private chats, the one-on-ones. And I think, Armin, they do have the option of making it public if they want, right? There's details on that.
There's different tiers of our patrons. So because the public ones helps us because we could put more content out there. So the private ones are for our because then if we spend a lot of time doing a private one, we can't even share it. So we put that for a little bit higher tier patrons.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have the choice of a private one-on-one chat, and depending on the tier that you're in, we can make it public or not. Either way. So Armin has started doing them. We're kind of doing them both separately. You get to do them separately with Armin and myself. So feel free to reach out to me. I'll actually be reaching out to people who Armin has already talked to, and then I'll be scheduling my own one-on-ones with them. So we'll get a chance to do that, and that should be a lot of fun. And yeah, Obaid is awesome. We had he's a fantastic guy. He's one of my favorites. So
right.
we've
and to
it was
see
a pretty good episode.
And to see how to reach out to us and schedule these events, either ask us on Patreon, or I'm already messaged everybody about it. But if you ask us on Patreon, then I'll send you the post regarding to instructions on how to schedule meetings with me, Ali, or both of us. All right.
Right. Okay. So, cool. Another announcement, like this week, we're going to have the latest episode of the Secular Jihadist podcast is going to be with Abdullah Gondal. We recorded that. It was a fantastic episode. It was on Quranic criticism, about talking about debunking infallibility, shattering taboos, about criticizing the Quran. So this was obviously a very key element of the European Enlightenment, was biblical criticism, the academic discipline of it. So Abdullah Gondal, who is pretty much like a rising star in the atheist movement in general, much less the ex-Muslim movement. I mean, he was. We just had a fantastic conversation with him, and we will have him back for part 2 of that conversation, where we're going to be talking about the life of Muhammad. So definitely don't miss that one. Anyway, you can check that out.
I have a Facebook question. I have a I have the
Go for
Facebook.
It. So we're going to start with the questions now. Yeah, go ahead.
But I have some from Mustafa Iqbal on Facebook. He says, I understand that you guys want to engage with Muslims more. So for that matter, how have you approached Yaqeen Institute for Islamic Research for a panel discussion or even a debate? Isn't that the institution where where we had Asadullah? No, that's a different institution.
Yeah, I think Yaqeen was
Asadullah. We had Asadullah from Yaqeen Institution on one of our episodes, Mustafa. But if you know more people, more Muslims, we are very interested to have more Muslims on the podcast. So if you want to recommend anybody to us, or if you want to reach out to Muslims coming to tell us. By the way, did you mention our website? You mentioned our website, right?
I did, yeah, about 2 or 3 times. Secularjihadist.com. That makes another one. But yes, so Yaqeen Institute is where Asadullah Ali Al-Andalusi is. He's a previous guest on the podcast. So if you did miss that episode, be sure to go back in the archive and check it out. They're all on iTunes for free.
Yeah, search for Secular Jihadist Asadullah, and then you should be able to find it.
And you'll be able to find it. And just generally, one of the things, I have actually reached out to some imams. I never hear back. For some reason, it seems that a lot of the imams are the prominent people who we do want to have a dialogue with, and we'd love to have a live dialogue with. For some reason, many of them are content sort of arguing online back and forth, but they don't really want to engage in a live dialogue or for whatever reason. Maybe they don't want to be associated with ex-Muslims, or maybe they don't feel like they have the debating chops to actually have a live debate. I don't know what the reasons are.
You should use the right terminology. Would you like to come do some da'wah to atheists? Say that. No,
try to convert us. Yeah.
Yeah, no, because basically, if you say that, then if they say no, it seems like they are giving up on their Islamic duty, because we're giving them an avenue to preach Islam to people that have abandoned Islam. And if you say no to that, you're missing a huge opportunity on da'wah. We're giving you a huge audience of kafirs, and you're saying no to it.
Yeah. But if you guys do have any suggestions for imams and everything that you'd like to come on and who are interested in debates like this or discussions, I mean, really, I prefer discussions to debates, because you're not trying to win; you're trying to actually exchange ideas. So in the past, we've had Daniel Haqiqat Jew. We've had Asadullah. We've had other liberal Muslims like Maajid Nawaz, in previous episodes as well. So please send any recommendations our way. Beej is asking, have you had Abdullah Samir on? I've talked to Abdullah, and at some point, yes, Abdullah Samir will be coming on as well. So just letting you guys know, heads up there.
By the way, Ali is in charge of the getting us the guests. which is so he's the one to go to with regards to have this person on or have that person on. Oh, by the way, there was this Malaysian Muslim that has been recommended to me to have on our show. Maybe I'll but she's like defending a Malaysian Muslim woman that is defending non-Muslims from other Muslims. So that's pretty interesting. We should have her.
Oh, I would love to have that conversation.
Yeah.
So I do that, and if you have anything, I mean, just message me on. If you go on my Twitter, in my Twitter bio, my email's there. So just email me right at my Twitter bio, or you can also email me from atheistmuslim.com. Whatever, I'm pretty easy to reach.
Right.
So a couple of. Okay, now we're gonna get into the questions. First of all, just get this out of the way. Brian Harrison, I want to acknowledge, yes, your brother Tekashi69. He has a song called Gummo, which is what made him famous, apparently, as you claim. So please feel free to go and check that out. We're not going to play it on here.
Well, you're going to get a copyright strike if you play it on here.
Yeah, exactly. So we don't want to get the shutdown. But please, to tell them we said hi. Anyways, now that that's out of the way. Yeah. Okay, so first of all, starting with Jim. Jim is saying, we always start light. I like this. So are two heads really better than one? Would you prefer to live on a planet where women have two heads and one body, or one where women have one head and two well-proportioned bodies? Armin, I'll leave this to you.
What the hell?
I don't know why it's specifically about women. You're assuming heteronormativity.
Right. I mean, both of them are fucking freaky.
Wait. If you're having to think about it that much, let's just skip this question.
Yeah. I don't know. I'd rather not live on any. Well, I mean, that's not the question. I guess two heads and one body is less freaky. Both of them are freaky, but two heads and one body is less freaky than one body and one head and two bodies, isn't it? It's like, so how we would even walk around like that? Yeah. I mean, for the sake of the individual, for mobility's sake, I would say one body and two heads.
Anyway, guys, thank you for your questions. Good night. That's the show. And we're going to see you next time.
No.
That's it.
Okay.
So, and Jim is following up and saying, has all this evolution been worth it? I don't know. We're going to find out at some point. Okay.
Wait, actually, that's a good question, because I think I had so here's the thing: we both agree with Steven Pinker that things are always getting better and better, right? Like when it comes to worth it, are you talking about from obviously from a human?
Oh no, he's talking about the two heads, one body thing. Evolution? Yeah,
I thought that was a different question. Never mind. I was gonna answer a serious question now, but no, never mind.
Sang is saying, have you guys read the AFID piece on Imam Tawhidi? I have not.
Wait, what's the question?
I don't know what. Have you read the AFID piece on Imam Tawhidi?
What the hell is that?
Yeah, I have not. But Imam Tawhidi, by the way, was a previous guest on the podcast almost a year ago, I think.
Yeah, that's our most watched video on YouTube, by the way.
Right. So, no, I haven't seen that piece on him. Sorry, what was the name? I lost the question. Sang. I'm sorry, I haven't really seen it. I did see a tweet from him recently that relates to my city, where he really wants us to vote in Faith Goldie as our mayor, who doesn't really have much of a chance. I don't think he knows Toronto very well. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't know that much about Faith Goldie either, except I have heard her talk about identitarianism and the identitarian movement. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm just a little wary of identity politics in general, especially when it comes to this context. The title of my book was tongue-in-cheek. It was actually poking at some of those identities. Anyway, Nick Kana, how do you distinguish between Sam Harris and Robert Spencer's attitudes towards Islam and Muslims?
Wait, what's Robert Spencer's attitude towards Islam, though?
Robert Spencer.
Oh, okay. You were talking Robert Spencer. I always confuse the two Spencers with each other.
I'm sure he's gonna love that. I think that. Yeah. I think Sam Harris is much more reasoned. I think that he's got his head in the right place. He's obviously he's also, like, I personally align with him as well, because he's got more liberal values. He aligns on a lot more things. He's concerned about more topics than just Islam.
But Robert Spencer knows more about Islam than Sam.
Robert Spencer does, but unlike some of the other sort of, like for example, Tom Holland, right? Tom Holland is a brilliant sort of he's written about Islam and Muslims. He's not a formal scholar, but he might as well be, and he's researched it really well. Other people like Patricia Crone, she's a very well-renowned scholar. Is it Michael Cook?
Yeah,
I think is another renowned scholar.
Robert. I mean, I read some of Robert Spencer's books. He's pretty good on Islam. Whatever your views are on him personally, his knowledge on Islam is pretty good.
I would think that Robert Spencer is his criticisms of Islam. I actually agree with most of them, and I think Armin does too.
Right.
My only problem is I feel like he's very, very alarmist. There's a lot of he has a lot of
fear-mongering kind of stuff, right?
Fear-mongering, a lot of xenophobia, creeping Sharia. He had a book called Stealth Jihad where he was talking about how there's a stealthy sort of jihad creeping in. He thinks Maajid Nawaz, people like Maajid Nawaz are potentially have Islamist and jihadist sympathies, and right. That's what they're working in secret. So that's there's a little bit of paranoia there. So it's kind of like the Geert Wilders thing, where I agree with the criticisms of Islam. I just don't agree with the diagnosis. I think when it comes to the treatment and the management, I think they're completely wrong.
See, I mean, then people say, well, do you think there's no danger with Islam? And of course there is. I just think, for example, the people that are like, oh, this person is a jihadist, or this person is a secret jihadist, or taqiyya. I think it's the difference between pointing out that, okay, the dad in the family, he's spending the money on alcohol instead of paying for our education, or he's not treating our mom properly, and pointing these things out, and then compared to somebody saying, no, he's actually a mass murderer and he actually is about to kill the children, right? You know what I mean? Like, we can. I think when it comes to Islam, there are a lot of damages to society and a lot of threat to civilization when it comes to Islam. But I think that us pointing out that some of these threats that other people point out are not true or fear-mongering, it doesn't mean that there is no threat from Islam. I just think that they are pointing in the wrong direction when it comes to what threat Islam actually has to us and to civilization and to but go ahead.
I also think it's counterproductive. And here's an example. I think we were talking about this recently, and this is sort of sort of treacherous political territory. But if you have something like climate change, right? So one of the things is, I remember in the 80s we were talking about chlorofluorocarbons and how we shouldn't use spray deodorants and things like that, and many of us stopped using it, and that had a huge effect. But then when it became very, very politicized and people started talking about, well, in 10 years from now, there's going to be no New York, or in 15 years from now, there's not going to happen. So when you create an alarmist kind of atmosphere around something that is actually originally reasonable at its core, then people stop taking it seriously.
Actually, that's a very good example. That's a very good analogy. Because nobody's saying
climate change is real and it's anthropogenic. But
exactly, because that's like, if I say like, no, New York is not going to be underwater in 10 years, that doesn't mean that I don't see global warming as a threat, right? But that's a fantastic analogy. I'm gonna use that.
So this is one of the problems when you kind of focus in on one thing and you become a one-issue person, and that's all you think about. If you take any one issue, if you start looking at misogyny, for instance, you can watch every television show and you're going to find misogyny everywhere. If you're looking for to find it everywhere. The same thing goes with homophobia. Same thing goes with you will, if you focus, if you become a one-issue person, you'll do it. But the thing that I want to stress is that the reason that we left Islam is because we value reason, we value balance, we value truth, logic, and part of that involves not being alarmist, going by the evidence and reacting to things, and not reacting but responding to things in a way that's proportional to the evidence and the threat that we're seeing. So, and there are many threats. It's not just one thing. I mean, people say, no, white supremacism is a threat. No, Islam is a threat. Well, Islam is a bigger threat than white supremacy. Yes, that's true. And it's also true that the other thing is a threat too. So does the regressive left, Do they empower Islamists? Yes, they do. Armin's talked about it. I've written a whole chapter in my book about it. But is it also true that a lot of these sort of far-right figures, by going overboard in their alarmism, are now empowering the regressive left? Well, Qasim Rashid was kind of a nobody before this stuff happened. Now he's like a huge guy, right? He's a he's got a lot of influence because a lot of the regressive leftist people have been very empowered, in the public discourse because of this. So all of these things are true, and you don't have to choose one or the other, and that's the danger of alarmism whenever you do it in either case. So it's good to be reasoned, and it's good to be balanced, and to stay in proportion, and have an interest in multiple things. Don't just be a one-trick pony. Nothing exists in a vacuum. Everything exists it's in coexistence with a whole bunch of other factors that all sort of interplay in terms of causality.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go to the next one. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to say this name. So usually what we do is just say the first name, but in this case I have to say the full name because the full name is Cunt Spell. If I said the first name, it would just be Cunt. So sorry about that. Anyways, the question is, you guys have these usernames. It's hilarious. Now more of them are going to do this, I know. Did you believe the Arab Spring was a positive thing at first for atheists?
Wait, did we miss some stuff about up there from Casey Atheist tagging us, or have you not got there yet?
No, I haven't gotten to that yet.
Okay, let's go through them a little bit faster because we're gonna. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So did you believe the Arab Spring was a positive thing at first for atheists?
What country though?
Just the overall, the whole thing was that there are all these Middle Eastern dictators, Arab dictators, and there were uprisings against them, and there's every reason to think that these uprisings were pro-democratic. So anytime you have something, yeah, go ahead.
Actually, the thing is that we don't have like we don't have like a sample control environment like add Arab Spring, not add Arab Spring. But that's a good point. I mean, if the Muslim Brotherhood, atheism is now illegal in Egypt under fucking Sisi, right? Mm-hmm. So, but it would have been worse under Muslim Brotherhood. It would have definitely been worse under Muslim Brotherhood. I guess Tunisia is much better now, right?
Yeah.
Syria has been worse. The Arab Spring for Syria has been worse for everybody in fucking Syria, right? Where else?
Libya
again has been worse for everybody. Mm-hmm. Go on.
Yeah, I have a sort of a long-term outlook on this, so I'll try to summarize it as quickly as I can. Around 70% of the population in all of these countries across the board, Libya, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Iran, even 70% of the population is under 30. So whenever the last great, for example, Gaddafi was dictator for 40 years, these people didn't know anything. So what happens usually is that when you break up a system and the people, the majority of them don't really know any other system, it takes some time for it to become okay.
You underestimate how religious can young people become.
No, I'm not. I'm actually getting to that. Okay. So what I'm saying is that when you have these dictatorships, a lot of these were secular dictatorships. So Gaddafi, and I lived in Libya, is he's pro-socialism. He was secular. Saddam was very secular. Even though he pretended not to be whenever he needed not to be. What happens is that the only organized opposition these people generate, these dictators, are the Islamist groups. Right. So the Muslim Brotherhood became very, very strong in Egypt over the years in opposition to Mubarak. So when Mubarak came down, that was the one most organized opposition party that came through. Doesn't mean that there weren't other groups. They just weren't as organized. They were more fragmented.
This is exactly what happened in Iran when the Shah
I was just going to say.
Right.
Exactly. So the Iranian Revolution there were feminist groups, there were socialist groups, there were many secular groups.
Communist
but the thing
groups. The strongest, after the Islamic groups, the strongest other group was the Islamic groups. Mm-hmm. Sorry, it was the communist groups.
Yeah. So I think that what we're going to see is a lot of these Arab Spring countries. It's going to be a process that's going to be a little bit longer. It'll probably go through what Iran went through, where you had this, now you have a clerical leadership for a very long time, and eventually when that cracks, you're going to have a much better situation in Iran if it does.
No, if it cracks, it might never crack.
They're all very old. There's already a lot of rivalry within the hardliners. There's a lot going on.
Come on. Okay, actually, we don't. It's been for the past 40 years in Iran. Everybody has been any day now. Okay, this is.
Hey.
We've been used to hearing like, okay, it can't last any longer. That's what we.
That doesn't mean it's not. I'm just saying.
I'm not saying it means that this time is not different. This time might be different, but we learned to become very skeptical. Okay.
Yeah.
Because
I get that. I totally get that.
First of all, I don't think it was.
It does
I don't
take
think
decades.
it's. My dad. Okay, so a lot of people say the Islamic Revolution might be worth it because people now in Iran see how shitty things are when Islam is in power, right? But I'm like, no, it's just 40 years. Are you serious? It's not worth it. You know how many people have suffered because of this? Right? The net benefit is negative. It's definitely negative. And also, but here's another thing. Like, people think like Iran, and I know a lot of Iranians hate it when I say this because a lot of Iranians want this government to fall. And I'm not saying it's not going to fall. I'm just saying even Assad didn't fall. Okay? Assad didn't fall. Assad has like a fraction of the force and the power that the Iran government has, right?
But Iran also supports Assad, right?
Right, but Iran
so does Russia. Like they have a lot of support.
Yeah, but Iran. Yeah, so Iran used a tiny fraction of the force that it could to support Assad, and if it wanted to support itself, it would use all its force to support itself, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is, Iran is not just in Iran. Iran has tentacles all over the Middle East. It could make the life miserable for all the forces there, every single power there. I'm just saying that everybody thought Assad is gonna be, and he's still there. Right? I'm just saying it's not that easy. I mean, look at United States.
I don't think it's easy, but I do think what I'm saying is in the just if you look at the history of countries, usually whenever you look at the history over 100 years of something, there's always like, well, this event happened, and then you had this uprising, it was quashed. Then this uprising was even more intense, it was quashed, and then eventually this is how it ended up. So I'm not saying it's going to happen
instead of better. You don't know. Like it's not that easy to. I think you have so many examples of things going different ways that it's not a trend.
There's no perfect analogy.
Yeah, I mean, there is like unique situations, I mean, anything that happens, you could point to something in history that was similar to what happened. So you have examples for things going in any direction, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's easy to, I mean, go ahead.
No, I think overall, I mean, I guess the question was it a good thing for atheists? I think that if you have any kind of democratic uprising and any kind of uprising where there are people who have less power, who are able to speak up against people with more power, that kind of free speech, even though it's a limited sort of retarded, I mean that in the literal sense of the word retarded, like slowed effect. It's encouraging. It's a baby step. I tend to be optimistic with the baby steps, but I understand why people are skeptical about it.
Right. The voices of this, but here's what happens. Sometimes the dissent is met with such. Okay, here's actually, I could give you a reason why it actually could work the other way around, because the example of Syria and Libya are the main reasons why the people in Iran that are against dissent, they point to Syria and Libya. So you see how an example of what happened to people that went against the government is now a discouragement for other people going against the government. So in Iran there is competing narratives that we need to fight against our government. We should, even among people that are against the Islamic regime in Iran, among many of them think like it's better than what happened to Syria. Whatever these imams do to us, let them stay in power, because look at what happened to Libya, look at what happened to Syria, look at what happened to Iraq. We prefer dictators over chaos. Okay? So, you say like, as long as you have more dissent, it might be good because now more people have more voices. No, because in this example, the reaction to that dissent might actually discourage. It might be used as a PR against any form of dissent, but we don't know. We'll see.
So the idea is one thing we could both agree on is don't hold your breath.
And but what is true that, and something you often point at, is the demographics are changing. A lot of people are anti-religion in Iran. A lot of
Internet.
A lot of people are anti-government in Iran. But there are new trends that are happening in Iran, which is there are people in Iran that is a growing movement in Iran, anti-religious, anti-Islam, nationalist, pro-government movements in Iran, which is so bizarre, right? So you have people that hate Islam with passion, but support this government. Go figure that. Like, we could get into the details of that, but this is a new, very young generation movement that is growing in Iran.
Yeah,
which is bizarre.
Yeah, I think we should have another episode. I know we've talked about it a lot, but people generally really they like the perspective because I think that what's happening in Iran and the way things turn out in Iran is probably, to me, there's no perfect analogy, but it's sort of it's an indicator of the general temperature of a lot of that region and people who've been through that kind of history in terms of the kind of rule. There's many things that are not parallel at all, but I would be kind of interested to see how that turns out.
All right, sorry, let's go next one.
So let's move on. Wonder if we can get Sarah Sen to come on. Who's Sarah Sen? Do you know?
No.
Sarah Sen? I don't know either. Sorry, Beej. If you could clarify that, we'll go. Oh, Sarah Sen is an ex-Salafi, now Hanafi. Oh, that rhymes. That's pretty cool. You should be a rapper.
Oh, yeah. I would love that, actually, now that you said it.
Please send me the contact information, Beej. Again, just go to my Twitter bio, my email's there, send it to me, and that actually sounds interesting. So I'd be happy to reach out to Sarah Sen, he or she, whoever it is.
We should have Ali Dawa.
Ali Dawa. Oh, that's a pretty badass name. Yeah, we should totally do that.
Okay.
Yeah, Ali Dawa. Bruno is saying Ayman Ismail, he's really nice. I agree. I actually really like Ayman. I don't agree with him on everything, obviously, but I think he's one of those rare people.
Ayman?
Yeah, and Armin has actually had him on the Atheist Republic podcast, if I'm right?
No, yeah, just search for How to Fight Islam. I had a very long conversation with him. That was pretty good. We should have him on the show.
Yeah, we should have him on the show. Yeah, I agree. I think I actually like him quite a bit.
Yeah, let's reach out to him as well.
Okay. Okay, let's see. Oh shit, I lost my place. Hold on, let me catch up. Guys, give me a second. Okay, I'm back. Two heads in one body. Okay, we're still going with that. I think they're discussing that amongst yourselves. That's great. Yeah, please go ahead. Okay, KC's asking, do you think Maajid Nawaz is still a believer? He's sensitive about it. He kind of freaked out when I said every time I hear him talk, he sounds like an atheist. Do I think Maajid Nawaz? I don't really know. I think he does align and agree with a lot of the people, a lot of ex-Muslims. He's generally very, very supportive, but unless he says it, I wouldn't know. I can't read minds. Yeah. I can't pretend to know what. I mean, there are many people who I was convinced the way that they were speaking that they were atheists, and then I had private one-on-one conversations with them, and they told me why they were still believers. One of them actually said, and this is a fair point, if you heard our conversation with Abdullah Gondal, and later on when we get into the biography of Muhammad, is that after Muhammad died, he didn't name a successor, he didn't name any kind of inheritance thing, nothing, and the Quran was compiled many, many decades after he died, so anybody could have written stuff, anybody could have put things in. So this person who I talked to, I'm not going to name because she's actually fairly prominent, she said that she still believes because she thinks that real Islam died with Muhammad, and she's going to go with whatever she thinks of Muhammad. And so there are many different reasons why I don't agree with it, but
yeah, of course. So how do you know any? So you just make up your own religion and culture?
Yeah, so you don't know what he was about either, but she would be like because she's like, well, his first marriage.
So let's just make stuff up.
His reverence for his daughter, the way he cared about, and then I think
how does she know?
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, all of that documentation was through the isnads as well. The sort of people who transmitted tradition by the oral, what they call the oral tradition, which was the Arab method of documentation back between the 7th and the 9th centuries, when there's a vacuum of
for all we
information
know,
from history.
Muhammad might have been an atheist, right?
He could have been. That would have been great. Maybe he never said anything about Allah and all that stuff. Maybe
No,
people
maybe he
afterwards
said
did.
it, but he told Ali like, "Hey, I have a plan. Let's make some. This is. I don't
That's
know.
the thing.
Yeah.
We don't know. So this person has basically started from her identity as a Muslim. She
Right.
thinks of it
But
as an identity.
but let's go to back.
And that's it.
But going back to the question regarding Majid again, we only can tell by what people tell us, right? So if they say they're not an atheist, okay. I mean, no, as long as the definition is no. Actually, we can't go by what they say. If they say they believe in God, then we'll consider them not an atheist, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But if they say I believe in God, but I'm an atheist, I'm like, no, you got your definitions wrong. So I don't. If they say they believe in God, I'll accept that they believe in God because I can't read minds. But if somebody is an atheist and they're choosing not to say that they're an atheist, it might be, and I don't agree with this, but their personal reasoning might be that they might think that whatever they're leading will not be as effective if people know that you're an atheist, right? Like,
well, actually, in a lot of cases, it's also security reasons. So a lot of people won't say.
I mean, but I don't think. I mean, how many times do you hear this? People, like, not Majid, but in general, they say like, "Well, as a Muslim, oh, are you saying that to a Muslim?" Or like, "Well, I'm a Muslim. You're talking to a Muslim." Like, how many statements like that do you hear them start saying? Well, all of that is going to go out the window as soon as you're not a Muslim anymore, right?
I know, right. I know. So. But either way, yeah, the Maajid is someone who I think is I think he's got a lot of integrity. I think that he has whenever he says, if he ever decides.
But wait.
And remember, Maajid was in that first debate. He was debating across from Ayaan Hirsi Ali. Now he's debating on the same side as her. So there is a learning curve as well, and some of these things are they're transitions. He may get there, he may not get there. I don't know, right. but either way, he's an ally.
But here's the thing: if somebody is an atheist, but they're choosing not to say that, some people might see that as deceptive. I personally don't know if it is. Maybe they think it's worth it for I don't. Maybe they're thinking that the term Muslim is just a loose term, anyways. So maybe in their own mind they don't think that. I don't think it's a good strategy, honestly. If it's not for safety, if it's for safety issues, definitely say whatever you have to say, right? But if it's not for safety issues, if you don't believe in God, I really encourage anybody and everybody to just come out as an atheist. And I'm not saying somebody that doesn't do that is trying to be deceptive. I just think that it's not the best strategy to not. I mean, the more people openly say they're atheists, the more. I mean, atheists are one of the most discriminated groups in the world. We need to normalize it. I mean, if you think like, oh, I need to be a Muslim because I need to normalize being a Muslim and people not discriminating against Muslims. Well, what about if you're an atheist? Well, you're abandoning us. Like, we need normalization here as well, buddy. But go on. Okay, Ali.
Alex, we're going to say all these questions because I know a lot of people skip over these questions, but these are the most fun ones. Would you rather sleep with 100 ugly girls or one gorgeous girl, Armin?
I mean, even if it was between 100 gorgeous girls and one gorgeous girl, I would have to go with one, because 100 gorgeous girls, like, how would that...
Ugly, 100 ugly
No, but
girls.
I mean, even if both was gorgeous, like, how would you go about having sex with 100 gorgeous girls? That sounds
that's
like...
the difference between you and me, sir.
No, I mean, at least go 5 or 10, maybe. That makes logical sense. You could do something. I can't even imagine how are you going to, like, what the hell, 100? That sounds like a gang rape or something. I don't know. I don't know what that is. I don't know. Like, can you even imagine 100? Like 100, okay? 5, 10, maybe even 20, okay? I don't know, but 100... Like, that sounds like a nightmare. All right, but go ahead.
I am betting that Alex, I hope you're very, very satisfied with that answer. Anyway. Okay, so let's keep going. More questions. Serena is saying, who is /are your favorite authors and why? You want to go for it first?
Oh, me? Favorite
author? Author or authors?
Favorite, well, I have to say, Masih Halinejad is one of my favorite authors now. But after I read her book,
you loved her book, right?
Oh my God, yeah, one of the best. I love Sam Harris. I read a lot of his books. Um, I read Breaking the Spell. I think it's a very
Daniel Dennett.
Daniel Dennett is a very underrated, underrated book. More people should read that book. That's such a good book. From I like Dawkins, but not because of God delusion, mostly because of the selfish gene. That was my favorite book of his.
I like Unweaving the Rainbow, and some. I think he's a wonderful writer,
Right.
Richard Dawkins. I would say him, and I'd also say, I would say out of all of these, if we're talking about the sort of the new atheist writers, I'd have to say Christopher Hitchens is probably.
I'm not.
Because
I mean, I like Hitchens' talks. I don't like his book.
the only reason is because when I read one of the first, probably the first new atheist book I ever read, or it wasn't a new atheist book back then, but it was Letter to a Young Contrarian by Christopher Hitchens. And reading him, even reading Hitch 22 and some of his other books, the way that he writes like music. It's like listening to music. I mean, the way that he uses words is like a musician playing notes. It's absolutely like there's an emotional allure to it. So
I would
Steven
definitely
Pinker among this group.
Steven Pinker as well, and but in one book that I have, one author that I haven't read yet, but I have watched lectures of. I have a list. My list of books are way too big, so that like what I've seen in his lectures, I know I'm gonna love his books. So Bart Ehrman is going to be very interesting. Vali Nasr, is that how you say him? Vali Nasr.
Yeah, that's him.
Yeah, Valley Nasser's a really. He didn't coin it.
Huntington, Samuel Huntington, is that his name?
No. I think that's the person that named the book. He wrote the book, but he didn't coin the term. Wait, hold on.
Okay, guys, we're all Googling now.
Okay, wait. No, I forgot what he was. The guy that writes about Islam. The guy that writes about Islam. The Jewish guy that writes about Islam a lot.
I don't know.
Moses? What? What did he say?
Anyway, so what about fiction? I gotta say one of the books I read long time ago, which still stands out, it still stuck with me, because even though I don't agree with their politics a whole lot nowadays, is Arundhati Roy. She wrote The God of Small Things. It's just a mind-blowing book. It's just amazing when it comes to fiction. Anyway, there's so many I can't even think of them. But
Bernard Lewis. Jesus Christ.
Bernard Lewis.
Yes.
Okay.
I read a lot of him. He's awesome. I'm not good with names, sorry.
Okay, and I also have to mention Tom Holland. I'm rereading In the Shadow of the Sword. He's a historian, and he's just a beautiful writer. Like reading, he makes history sound like a thriller. It's great. So I recommend that book too. Shruti Suresh. Faith Goldie is a Nazi. So I've heard. I don't know enough about her, but from what I've seen, like I don't. Yeah, I don't. Nowadays, it's gradations, right? Are you really a Nazi? Are you just a white nationalist? Are you white supremacist? I have no idea. But yeah, it's not something I'm interested in. You guys should talk to Vidu Vids and Mimsy. So Mimsy, I need to know more about who Mimsy is. I haven't heard of Mimsy, but have you? Have you heard of Mimsy?
Wait, is that from the Mimsy?
Mimzy. Who's that?
No, is that from the cartoon? Is that?
I don't know, but Vidu Vids, by the way, guys, again, another heads up. Vidu Vids is going to be on the podcast. I have talked to him, Waleed Wayne. So I have talked to him. We're just scheduling right now, and I'm going to go on his thing too. So we're also figuring that out.
Can we have
so I'll let you know whenever that happens.
We should have the Masked Arab on as well. The Masked Arab.
Yeah, we should. So, Matt is saying, Ali, we just elected Doug Ford. Don't rule anything out. I think we talked about this in the past. I'm not going to get into it too much. But the Ontario election.
Vidu's wife. Facebook chat is saying. By the way, I have some questions from Facebook chat as well.
Okay, cool. So yeah, we'll do that. So yeah, as far as the Doug Ford things, I know we elected him. I think a lot of that really had to do with the complete failure of the Liberals, and I vote Liberal. I'm a member of the Liberal Party. I still align with a lot of their values, but I think they completely screwed it up, and Kathleen Wynne screwed it up, and that's a big reason why we have Doug Ford, because people just weren't able to save. They were spending way too much. Anyway, that's local politics. I'm not going to get into it too much. Okay, so Mars is saying Ali Arman, Iona Italia on Twitter. Oh, I love her. And it often references Hindu nationalism. How severe are their practices as opposed to Islam as a different religion? I'm curious as to what effects it has on the areas. We're going to be actually doing an episode on this. So there are a couple of guests that I've reached out to, and I know one of them. Again, we're just scheduling Zubin Madan. He's a writer who lives in India, and he's pretty familiar with this the politics over there regarding Hindu nationalism. He's also an atheist, right? So of a Parsi background or Zoroastrian background. So he's going to be really interesting to have on and to talk about this. He's a journalist over there. So he's one of them. There are a couple of other people that we're planning to have on. Iona has a great new podcast called Tea for Two that she does with Helen Pluck-Rose, who I really like a lot as well. And we're currently scheduling. I'm going to be going on that podcast, and we're probably going to invite them on here as well. So we're going to have more dialogue. So look out for that, Mars. Thank you.
That should get us a lot of fans from India. I think,
Yeah.
Atheists in India and in Philippines and in Mexico have been doing a lot, and in Kenya. There's so a lot of activism all around the world that we need to acknowledge. Nigeria as well. But we should reach out to atheists in Nigeria. I think that's going to be a major battleground. But go on.
Yeah. Now Kant is asking again, do you think David... What do you want me to do? Do you think David Horowitz is a bigot? I don't know who... Do you know who David Horowitz is?
I'm bad with names. Okay, let me look it up.
Okay, Armin will look it up. And then meanwhile, I'll do on the next question. There's some stuff between commenters.
Oh, I've seen this guy's face.
Raptor 10,001 is asking... can you speak to the history of Islam and where to start studying it and what fascinating things to look for? Where to start studying with like a short type of thing.
I have books. Okay, so
okay, you do your recommendation, and I'll do mine.
Books? Or you want books or lectures? Well, what I like is reading it in a story format. So I think you have to cut it into 3 different sections, and these 3 are not at all the same length, right? So, but they're as significant, right? So you have to, when you talk about history of Islam, you're either talking about the history of Muhammad's life, and then you're talking about what happened after, which is the four Khalifas, and then Hassan and Hussein and Imam Ali and whatever during that time. So
the dynasties like Umayyad dynasty.
No, that's the third.
That comes later.
The third part, right?
Yeah, that's the third part. Yeah.
So basically, Muhammad's life, the Rashidun part, which is the Khalifas, and then
the Caliphates.
The Caliphate part, and once the Caliphate, the 4 Caliphs, once they're over, then you have the Umayyad dynasty, then you have the Abbasid dynasty, and then you have the Ottoman. Ottoman dynasty, right? And then after that, there's no more. World War One. But so you either talk. So which ones are you mostly interested in, right? I think you could. They're completely separate topics, to be honest, right? The interesting thing is that Muhammad's life is what Muslims see as what made Islam, which is interesting because the more you study it, you realize what happened after is mostly responsible for what made Islam. So you could study Muhammad's life because at least in the eyes of Muslims, that's the most important part, and that's what the most important part of the foundation and what the nature of Islam and what Islam stands for. And Muhammad himself, whatever he said and did, represents Islam. But then I think what happened after Muhammad becomes very interesting, becomes very political. It's kind of Game of Thrones, okay? It's what happened after Muhammad's death, the family disputes, the backstabbings, the drama between all the elements that happened after Muhammad is so interesting. It is exactly like Game of Thrones without the dragons, which is, yeah. But so, and I could give you some book recommendations on that. But then after that, this is an area that I'm actually interested in seeing more books about. Books specifically dedicated to the like right now I read books on Islamic history, and it's just like Islamic history, one book. Like I like to see a book specifically on Umayyad dynasty, one is specifically on the Abbasid dynasty, and one specifically on the Ottoman. There are books like that there, but I mean, I've read some of them, but not, the ones that are about the Rashiduns and stuff has just been written in a much more interesting way. Anyways, but if you guys have, I could give you the book I read about.
The Rashidun are the people from before, the ones who.
But yeah, go ahead while I look up the books that I read on this.
Yeah, I would say like there are a lot of really interesting takes. Most of these have been, well, many of them have been sort of German scholars. If you want to get into the actual, the real nitty gritty of it. Patricia Crone and Michael Cook had a book called Hagarism, which was about this idea of the Abraham's slave girl. So Sarah was barren and Sarah couldn't have kids. So until Isaac happened, he actually ended up sleeping with one of his concubines. His name was Hagar, and she had a son called Ishmael. And the Ishmaelites are now thought to be Arabs. And so there was this theory. And later it got complicated after that too, but they kind of went from there, and they looked at a lot of the history of Islam that was documented by the sort of non-Muslim people who non-Muslim historians who weren't writing about the life of Muhammad in really flowery language, I guess, because a lot of the historical accounts had accounts of angels and apparitions appearing, so clearly that wasn't real. So they went with other sources, and they tried to put together some of it. A lot of it they've retracted themselves, the authors themselves, so they felt like they got a little too ambitious with it. But it was a pretty interesting thesis as well. So I thought that was the factual stuff in that book was really interesting. Tom Holland, and again I just mentioned in The Shadow of the Sword, he has actually compiled a lot of this academic sort of looking back into history in one place, including their writings.
You want to start with the story ones rather than the academic ones.
No, but I'm talking about the story told academically. So you have the story of the Battle of Badr, where there were angels who came in and they said to strike the disbelievers. You've got those kinds of historical stories, but then you've got the historical stories that talk about who first encountered Muhammad outside of Arabia. What was he? Was he ever in Syria? Was he ever in Jerusalem? Like those other things, the biographies that have been put together that way, the actual historical accounts. So, and a lot of it is very opaque. A lot of it we don't know about. So there are many. There's a guy named Fred Donner. I think he's at the University of Chicago. I'm probably getting the place wrong, but he's got some interesting takes on that early period of Islam as well.
Can I give the names of the books that I read?
Go for it.
So I read some was Muhammad stories. Some of them were very pro-Muhammad. Some of them were very anti-Muhammad. I think one of the ones that seemed less biased than the other ones is Muhammad from Martin Links, his life based on the earliest sources. That was very fun and very interesting. There are so many books on Muhammad. I think that was one of the least biased ones. And the one that I liked, which was right after Muhammad's death, about all the drama that happened after. It's very, very fun book to read. It's called After the Prophet. After the Prophet, the epic story of the Shia-Sunni split in Islam. And that one.
Oh, who's that? Who the author for that is?
Leslie Hazelton.
Leslie Hazelton. Yeah.
Hazelton. Yeah. That one was so fun. Oh my god! There was some I knew most of the stuff, but the way but there were some juicy details that I left out from school, and also the way even the parts that I know, the way it's written is so much fun to read.
Yeah, I can't believe I'm recommending this because I'm not a huge fan of the author, but No God But God by Reza Aslan. The first fourth or the first third of it is actually really good. There's a couple of things in there that are sort of wrong and a little fantastical, but overall it
I read that one
it
too.
Provides.
Which one was it? Is the Future of Islam?
No God But God, the Reza Aslan book.
Yeah, the No God But God, and then it says the subtitle is
Yeah.
No God, but God.
God. So I would actually recommend that to a lot of people if they want to kind of read it, if they can, even
Yeah.
though, definitely
The,
not a fan of the author,
oh yeah,
but
yeah. It's
still.
called no. I was right. So I read that No God but God, the origins, evolution, and future of Islam. So that's the full title. So the
Yeah.
interesting thing when I read that book is that he actually from the very beginning says that who says these stories have to be true, and I was like, what the fuck? Like Reza, you're not a
No, but
Muslim,
that's what I'm saying. He got a lot of crap from Muslims for it, and
right?
yeah. But this is before all the yeah. I don't
No,
know what
but
happened to him
I think
afterwards.
if he believes that technically he's not a Muslim, if he thinks these
Yeah.
stories are not.
Well, I mean, recently he's actually come out as a sort of an agnostic, God-only kind of non-religious kind of person. He has talked about his new book, that's called God or whatever.
Oh, okay.
It's about that. So he started talking about it more openly.
Okay.
Anyway, so guys, let's see. Next question. David Horowitz, we talked about that. Books. Steven Pinker talks about how alarmist messages often don't work. Yeah, he's correct, and I agree with that.
I have a Facebook question from Asif.
Yeah, go for it.
Do you think that Maajid is fundamentally trying to change the definition of Muslim to make it more like a cultural thing rather than religious, so that Muslims are then more like most Jewish people, i.e. cultural Jewish? We have a full episode on this, don't we? Like we could.
Yeah, we actually talked to Ibrahim Abdullah from Muslimish about it. And Ibrahim's a really, really good friend of mine. He's actually one of my heroes. So
and actually we had a huge disagreement on this, right? So
yeah, we did.
Go look for search for Ibrahim Abdullah and secular jihadists, and that should show up.
Yeah, so you'll get a more detailed.
We talked about this in great detail. Yeah, go on. Okay.
Yeah. So, do you believe the Kurds are in any way more tolerant than other Muslim sects? I actually I don't know enough about that in terms of how tolerant they are.
I know that they're prosecuted. When you get prosecuted by four different countries,
persecuted.
Yeah, I mean, you have to become secular because whenever you're a minority, you have no choice but to be pro-secular, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think the fact that they're pro-secular is mostly because of their history rather than because of their being Kurds. And I think, think about it. Why would you be not supporting secularism? And after so many years of wanting freedom, wanting fighting against persecution against your people, it kind of got it built into their identity of being a Kurd for many people, not for all Kurds, obviously. Mm-hmm. But I'm just saying this is because of the history that they went through. Like Kurds, you remember, Kurds don't have a country. They wanted to have a country, but after the World War, everybody got a country, but the Kurds got left out, and they got split in between four countries, between Iran, Iraq, Turkey, and Syria. And all these four countries gave them shit. So obviously, like if you're a Muslim, for example, in a Christian country, you're going to be pro-secularism. If you're a Christian in an Islamic country, you're going to be pro-secularism, right? But if you're a Muslim authority in an Islamic country, then you're not going to be pro-secularism. So Kurds have always been discriminated against, so naturally they will become pro-secularism, and we support secularism, so I guess we have a lot to align with. I just don't know if it would be different. It probably would be different if they had a Kurdish country. But yeah, go on, Ali.
Okay. What do you guys think of street epistemology? Have you tried it when engaging with Muslims? We had an episode where we talked about, was it with Matt Dillahunty or?
Yeah, I mean, there's some great things about it, but there is a weakness to it as well. And I know some people are not gonna like it that I say this, but the thing is that the problem is that if you don't add your own message, it's a very effective way to get people think about their
thinking, yeah.
To think about whether what they believe is true or not, right? It's just not a very good way to spread. Nobody like. Let's say you want to get more people out there. If you don't have something to say for yourself, you're not going to get far. That person is going to go home and maybe that's going to think about their belief, but you yourself are not going to be somebody that is standing for something where people will recognize you, that this is a person that is doing this and standing for this and has this message, and that's why we go to his platform to see what he has to say or what she has to say. And if you don't do that, then you're going to have to do one person at a time. You're not going to be able to get a huge audience of people to speak to. Right. So the only weakness of it is that it's it's good that it's great that you're listening and asking questions rather than just saying anything yourself. But I think I like to do that half and mix it a little bit with suggesting things, adding your own ideas to it. Like I think street epistemology kind of looks down upon, maybe if you could correct me if I'm wrong, looks down upon you suggesting anything or making any claims yourself. But I think that's important. Like that's an important element when it comes to talking. I mean, I have had more luck with making claims as well and suggesting things as well. But maybe I'm not understanding it. I mean, I've read the book. And is very interesting, and there's so many useful tips and tools to use from it. I just don't think it's enough. But go on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so Shruti saying, I'm not comfortable with the person standing for office. She hopes she loses. Oh, you're talking about Faith Goldie. I agree with you. I mean, she's kind of useless, and she will lose bigly, as you said. And the Toronto mayoral election, I mean, we've got our current mayor, John Tory, who's probably going to get reelected. People are generally happy with him. And his main contender is Jennifer Keesmaat, who is she's an urban planner. And she also has a really good record, and I would be fine with either of them. But Faith Goldie is like way, way down the list. Toronto is not the kind of city. I mean, I know they elected Rob Ford, but Faith Goldie is a whole different animal compared to Rob Ford. Anyway, compared to even compared to Rob Ford. Okay, so there's a little bit of discussion going on. Let me go down and see if there's any
If you
more.
want to make sure your questions get asked, make sure you tag Secular Jihadist or tag
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I'm catching most of them. In any way we can make a call-in show for Muslims like atheists experience. We've had this question. I would like to do that. I don't know how.
I think voicemails would be better than call-in so that we could control for quality. So what I can do is go on Secular Jihadist, and you know how on Atheist Republic I put a green button there where you could go click and you could record your voice, right? Mm-hmm. So I think what if we do the similar thing on Secular Jihadist, and then Muslims could basically ask their questions or make a claim, and we just play the audio and just respond to it. We could do something like that.
I think in addition, I think that would be a different thing. It's kind of similar to what we do now, where patrons and other people, the public generally gets to participate. But I think there would be a place at some point. It would be kind of fun to at least try out an atheist experience like thing. I've seen Maajid do it on his LBC show, and it actually is pretty that having that live back and forth exchange is actually pretty interesting. So maybe at some point in the future, we can think about it. Yeah. So. Okay, so
actually, if live call-in is more complicated than voicemails, and I think voicemails would be more productive because, first of all, you don't know how many people are going to call in. You're just going to be waiting around and wait. But if we have like 10 voicemails to play back to back, at least we know we have something to work with, right? But
right, yeah. And then his first name Islam is asking, do you guys follow what Rajiv Malhotra is doing with Swadeshi Muslims in India? I unfortunately don't know, but again, when we do our episode on all things India and the situation over there, then hopefully we'll be able to cover that and we'll make a note of it. Okay, some comments again. I'm trying to get questions. Oh, okay. One comment from Jim. How about a shout out to old secular jihadist Yasmin for getting over 1 million views for In Solidarity videos with the women who were forced to wear the hijab. We love Yaz. Go check it out. Her video, go to her Twitter timelines, is Confessions XMU. Yeah. And check out her video. I think it's her pinned tweet. And it's a fantastic video. Right. Where she takes off her hijab. Yeah, in solidarity with women who are forced to wear it.
That's great.
Okay, then there's some discussion about Maajid again. What do you predict of Trump's plan for peace for Israel-Palestine? It
What
looks a lot.
I don't think he has any plans.
He has a plan to make himself look like he is for something or another. It looks a lot less than past offers and based upon paying off Palestinian leaders.
I understand my view, and this might be totally wrong. Is that it's not like Trump gets up and comes up with a plan in the morning, or like goes and says like, "Hey, I have a plan." It's like just people come and say like, "Hey, this is a plan. Let's go with this," and he just like thinks about it for 5 seconds and says yes, no to things, based on how it sounds at the time. I don't think like this is a planning kind of person. I don't know. I mean, I think
Yeah, he likes to rally to his own base. One of the
right.
there are a lot of politicians in both parties, Republican and Democrat, who, for example, wanted to make Jerusalem the capital of, declare that Jerusalem was the capital of Israel. But the idea was that the U.S. Republicans and Democrats, every administration, the Bush administration, Johnson, everybody since Lyndon Johnson, has wanted Israel to curb the settlement expansion. And one of the reasons they didn't give that Jerusalem capital to Israel is because they wanted to get something in return. That's how you negotiate. Unfortunately, he didn't do that. He could have actually negotiated and he could have gotten something out of it, but he didn't do it. And really, it's not a big move anyway, because Jerusalem was always the de facto capital of Israel anyway.
No, you're right. You're right that the
thing.
main thing that he thinks about is that how things play to his base. But my image of him, like, I mean, this could be completely wrong, but I just don't think that he moves into a room and like says, "I have a proposal." I think he moves into a room and he depends on who has his ear, right? People is going to be like, "This, we should do this, and this is going to work well with your base." And he'll be like, "Oh, I like that if it works well with my base," and he's just going to take those proposals. I just don't imagine him going into a meeting and be like, "Here's my plan." I think he goes into a room and somebody says like, "Here's a good plan. You should do this," and he's like, "Okay, I think that's good."
I actually agree with you. And the people that he surrounds himself with who are telling him that stuff are people who kiss his ass all the time. Because anybody who doesn't, he eventually fires them or they leave. So I mean, there's a reason. Apparently, there are a lot of. So there's a lot of speculation that the reason John Kelly, his chief of staff, is still in there, and some of these other sort of reasonable people are still in there, is because they're saying, "Hey, listen, if we're not there, imagine who's going to replace us," right? So that's an issue, and that's why a lot of people aren't resigning. So yeah, I don't think Trump is serious about anything. He's just anyway, especially when you've seen what happened with the John McCain thing, everything that's happening recently. It's just so petty and so stupid.
Yeah.
Anyway. Okay, so Tina is saying, I've watched a lot of YouTube channels on Islam. Is it dangerous to leave Islam? I think it's called apostate, and why? Yeah, Tina, that's exactly what our podcast is about, and I'd love for you to go and check out some of our previous episodes.
Yeah.
On leaving Islam. The punishment for leaving Islam is, as agreed to by the vast majority of scholars in all sects, well, the main Shia and Sunni sect at least, is that you should be put to death. So
even the ones that are nicer, they say like, well, you should be put to death, but because we don't have an Islamic state right now, maybe we should wait until we have an Islamic state. So that's the nicer version that you're gonna get.
Yeah. So if you ask people who are like imams in the U.S. or imams in Britain, well, do you think they should be put to death? If you really push them, they'll say, but that would only happen in an ideal Islamic state. But in the U.S. and the U.K., no, that doesn't apply. That's their way of responding to it. So it is, yeah.
Or they bring up treason. They bring up treason as a United States. Oh, like, in the United States also treason was punishable. Like whataboutism, too wrong doesn't make all that. You should go watch okay, so that was Tina. We had an episode with Hariraju. Right,
Daniel Hakikaju. Yeah,
Daniel Hakikaju. So, just search for Daniel. How do you? Is that?
Just search secular jihadist Daniel, and you'll find it.
Is that?
Yeah, and you can listen to that, and we covered all of that in detail. And actually, if you listen to our third episode ever with Rana Ahmed, I mean, she's a woman who was able to escape Saudi Arabia. She also left Islam from Saudi Arabia, and she came here, and she's been completely separated from all of her family because even her brothers were searching her out to try and kill her.
Yeah.
So this is a serious thing. And that is what
just to be clear, Tina, we were arguing with Daniel, and Daniel was basically a person that I was arguing why it's okay to kill ex-Muslims if people who leave Islam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's keep going. Samuel Huntington, yes, they mentioned it, but then you said Bernard Lewis, and someone said that too. So there you go.
Yeah. I think it was, who was it that said that? Islam something. Islam Zionism. That's a very long username. If you want to shout outs, you have to have shorter usernames. But go on.
Mm-hmm. Any B just saying, any thoughts on Canada ending birthright citizenship? Is Canada ending birthright citizenship?
I don't know. Is it?
I don't think so. And if there is something like that, it's probably a really fringe type thing. I know.
We better have a baby fast.
I know. What are we gonna do with all our anchor babies? I think that if you're born in a country, that's your country.
Yeah. Okay, so wait. I'm a Canadian. My wife is not Canadian yet. Am I going to be affected by this if I have a baby? No, because I'm Canadian, right? So it doesn't matter. Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yeah. So there is apparently a motion from some sort of conservatives. I don't even know who it is. Vote to end policy that allows birth tourism. Birthright. Yeah, I don't know. So
it's a big industry here. Like there's a lot of services dedicated to it. Like people, I think I don't know who takes advantage of it mostly. Is it the Chinese here? Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean
there is that idea that, when you want to have a kid, you come to Canada, have the kid, then go back to China or go back to whatever country you're in. They're talking about birth tourism,
right.
And they want to end that. The Conservative Party is calling for an end of birthright citizenship. So, you're right. I didn't know about
Zara is asking if I'm a baby, and I know, but maybe I should before this law is passed. But no, I'm a Canadian, so it shouldn't matter.
Yeah, so when the so-called birth tourism was when pregnant non-Canadian women fly to Canada in order to give birth and secure citizenship for their babies. That happens. I'm not a fan of. I think that if you're born in a country that's if that's your place of birth, then that's your place of birth. It's like that in the U.S. It's like that here as well. So, in any case,
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's. What do we think about people taking advantage of just coming in?
There's going to be people who are doing that, but it's not a very common thing. I think people are hyping it up a lot more.
Maybe instead of taking it away, they have to say you also have to live here for a year after your birth, something like that.
That's the kind of thing that they're saying. But even then, I mean, how many people are coming over here, paying privately for healthcare to have a kid and all that stuff? If you're being able to pay, if you're paying privately for to have a kid over here, then probably means you have a lot of money to invest anyway. You'd have to be pretty wealthy. So please, welcome. Hopefully that improves our economy. Anyway, so yeah, that's my view. Sang is asking, what are your day jobs? My day job
you're being you're discriminating against people that can't afford it. Anyways, go.
Yeah, no, I guess so. I'm always going to be discriminating against somebody. Day jobs. Armin, what is your day job?
I have 6. I work, I don't know, I mean...
They're talking about day jobs, not hand jobs.
All right.
I don't care how many bodies are attached to how many heads. Doesn't make a difference.
Okay, I work at Penguin Philosophy.
Yep, Armin's a media director, right?
Yeah, the media director at Penguin Philosophy. But honestly, everything I do it's not okay. So I work at Atheist. I mean, I still work at Atheist Republic, Penguin Philosophy, Secular Jihadist. I mean, what's the definition of a day job? Because I do all of these during the day. So I also, I mean, the other ones are less of a more part-time. But so I guess the other ones don't apply. But Atheist Republic, Secular Jihadist, and my work at Penguin Philosophy take the most time. Oh, I also do a short-term rental management but my wife, she takes care of it mostly. We have a team for that as well. So property management for people that do short-term rentals.
Mm-hmm. And. Me, I'm an oncologic pathologist, so I was trained as a cancer pathologist. I practiced medicine until 2011, and then now I work full-time in medical communications. So I work at a digital healthcare agency. That's my day job. That's a lot of fun. So,
Zahra wants me to name our child Zahra.
well, hey, why not?
It's a prophet.
It's a
It's the
nice
name
name.
of the prophet's daughter.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, her middle name or last
But
name.
but I don't know. I'm always in favor of adopting instead of actually having a baby. But my wife wants to have a baby, so I don't know. I don't have a say.
Have a baby. Have a baby.
Yeah, you guys.
That'll be good. Yeah.
I'm
Let's do
actually
it.
very much. I don't get it. I don't understand. Why not just adopt? We could have that argument if the live chat asks. I really don't understand. But go
honestly, if my daughter was adopted, it wouldn't have made a difference at all.
Exactly.
Because people have asked me, they're like, what if you find out it's not your real kid? Just because she doesn't really look like me a whole lot, her eyes and stuff don't look like mine. So people are always like, what if you find out she's not your real kid? I'm like, well, at this point, I don't give a fuck whose kid she is. Like, I'm absolutely in love with her. So even if she was totally adopted, it would make fuck all difference to me. So yeah, I think either way is fine.
I really don't see. There's nothing magical about my sperm. I don't understand why that makes a difference, right? It's like as long as if it's this is a chemical reaction. You can love any baby as long as you're involved in raising it, right?
You are so cerebral. But that's the advantage too. That's a good thing about you in a lot of ways. But
I don't know.
It's not a fully
it's
cerebral decision.
Yeah, it's a chemical reaction, as if like one chemical reaction you're valuing it more than other just because it didn't came from your DNA. What's so significant about that? I don't understand. But anyways, go on.
I will leave that between you and your wife to discuss.
I haven't been.
It'll be good. Yeah.
I have not been very successful at that. All right.
Yeah. I hope you're even less successful.
Okay.
Yeah, it'd be fun to see you have a kid. Why not invite Iona Italia on the podcast? Killian, actually, okay, first of all, Killian, everybody should know I'm going to be on Killian's podcast on September 12th. So I will keep you guys up to date on that. I'm really looking forward to that. As far as Iona Italia, I've told you I'm a massive fan of her. And we are going to reach out to her to come on the podcast. I still have to reach out to her, but I will. And I am going to be going on her podcast on T for Two as well. So just repeating that for you guys. So George Kordahi, my good friend George Kordahi, who's a fantastic guy. Horowitz was in his previous life an extreme left-winger associated with Ramparts magazine. At a point, he went extreme right. I don't really know him, so I'm going to have to read up about him before I can comment or say anything, but that would be interesting. George, we could probably talk about it next time we meet up for coffee or whatever, which we should do. Long overdue. Okay. Intorian is asking, is there a major difference in day-to-day practice of religion between Shiites and Sunnis? Would one thing practiced daily in Sunni be considered horrible in Shia? Major difference.
How much time do you have?
No, but do you think there's a major difference?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so it depends on the Shia and Sunnis. There are a lot of Shias and Sunnis that are desperately trying to make it seem like they're both the same religion. And there are a lot of Shias and Sunnis that are very focused on making it very clear that the other one is a heretic, right? So the
Sunnis are heretics, by the way. They're assholes. Shias are true Muslims.
All right, here's the thing, though. When it comes actually, you're right, kind of. Well, actually, you're right, and you're okay. So when it comes to theology, I kind of see the Sunnis' point, because the Sunnis always say that the most important thing, the most fundamental part of Islam is what? Tawheed. Right? There's nothing more important than Tawheed in Islam, which is the oneness of God, right?
But that is the main pillar. That's the first pillar of Shia Islam too. Tawheed, Adl, Nabuwat, Imam al-Qiyam, right?
But Shias are just talk, because they pray to Ali, they pray to Hussein, they kiss the shrines of the Imams, and the Sunnis are like, what the fuck are you doing?
They don't actually pray to them. They call out to them.
No,
But they pray when it comes to worshipping.
No, they actually pray to them. They say, Ya Ali, please do this for me. Ya Hussein.
They ask them for things, but it's not considered the prayer is still
there's
to God.
Two okay, in English you have
but
one
word. They pray to God through.
Okay.
They pray to God through Ali and through Hussein.
Okay, in Islam, there's two different words for prayer. You have the namaz or salat, and the other one is the dua. Okay, all of these things in English are called prayer, right? But in Islam, they're completely separate. The prayer that you do 5 times a day is to God and God alone, right? Or 3 times. Shias basically combine them together, and they actually praying 3 times a day, but they count 5.
But they say that that's what the Quran says. The Quran doesn't specify 5 times.
Yeah,
like
okay,
they are actually. Yeah.
Okay,
I'm not defending Shias,
but there's
by the way.
the other prayer, which is the dua, which is the other prayer, which is the dua. Shias do pray to imams. They do. Okay, and to Imam Zaman as well. It's kind of like how the Protestants are pissed off by some Catholics when they pray to the saints, right? And they're like, why are you praying to dead people? Jesus is the only God, right? I mean,
actually, you know what? I'm going to concede. Yeah, they do. What they do is they ask the imams for protection. They put on that imam zamana and everything. Yeah, they ask the imams for protection, and so they do pray to them.
Right.
The idea, the underlying idea is that the imams, because they have direct divinity from God, they have direct connection to God.
Just saying that, just the fact that they're saying the imams are divine goes against Tawheed.
That's why they're
right.
Yeah, that's right.
So when it comes to the theology, it seems like the Sunnis are more, in line with the concept of Tawheed. And remember, the greatest sin in Islam is shirk, which is having partners in divinity to God, right?
Yeah.
Which the Sunnis were like, hey, look, every Shia is basically doing the greatest sin in Islam.
That's true. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, but when it comes to, theology, Sunnis, I think, are closer to Islam. But when it comes to the stories, it seems like the Shias have the upper hand there, because if you read the stories, read the book that I just told you, After the Prophet, you cannot feel bad. You will feel bad for Ali, or I think based on the stories. Okay, Ali did a lot of shit that it seems bad, but it seems
he's not talking about me, guys. He's talking about the
Imam Ali. Yeah. So if you look at Muhammad's story, if you look at the stories what happened, it seems like the Shias are right. To me, it seemed like this based on the stories, Muhammad wanted Ali to become the successor, and it seems like they cheated the Caliphate from right away from him. It seems like he got backstabbed, and eventually literally backstabbed, and his sons were mistreated. All the imams in Shia Islam were completely prosecuted, poisoned, killed. It just seems like, I'm not defending them, because they were kind of like, Imam Hussein himself, he just led a whole bunch of army of 70 people with women and children, in a suicide mission, which is fucking stupid, because you're responsible for the kids dying now, right?
But see, that's the thing. I never thought of that as a sacrifice. I always tell people, I'm like, Armin, if someone told me, he's like, you're going to go to heaven for eternity if you just let all your family die today. Right?
No, but what about the babies? Imam Hussein picked up a baby in front of the Yazid's army, and then arrow hit the baby, right?
They're saying, but the part of that tradition is that he was shown Jannah, he was shown heaven, that this is where you're going to be tomorrow, including your baby.
Okay.
So no, of course he wasn't, but the thing is that was his delusion, right? So that's what he thought.
No. Okay.
Now, what I'm saying, this is what I think.
That Taliban logic that you had interviewed, that doesn't work. They're getting Islam wrong, okay? Because if you kill a baby, okay?
Yes. Well, I'm not defending it. I'm just saying that if you believe...
No, I know you're not defending it, but even in Islamic theology, it doesn't make sense. Because if you kill it, hey, if I kill a baby, the baby's going to go to heaven, so I did the baby a favor. Yeah, the baby's going to go to heaven, but you're going to go to hell. Like, murder...
but he's Imam Hussein. He's divine, so he's not going to go to hell. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay. Here, look. The two things. First of all, Jesus' crucifixion, like the sacrifice for all of humanity, bullshit. First of all, he was resurrected from the dead.
Who?
Second thing is, if you believe that there is a life after death and this life is meaningless, then death is not death.
Yes, but
death
in
is
Islam,
it's a really painful transition to a better place. And if that is your sacrifice, that's not a sacrifice. If I'm like,
I understand that, Ali, but you could make that in Islam. You could make that decision for yourself, but you can't make that decision for someone else, even in Islam.
Unless you have been told by God to make that decision for everybody.
See, okay, you said told by God, so that's not only now you're saying Hussein was divine. That's saying he's a prophet.
I'm going by the belief.
I know.
I know.
See,
I'm going
it's
by
a
the
lot.
belief.
This is another thing. A lot of Shia thinks that a lot of Shias actually claim that Ali was spoken to by God Himself, which puts him in the same. But which some Sunnis are like pull their hair out when they hear that, because Muhammad was supposed to be the last prophet. God speaking to you is the definition of a prophet to them, right? So if some Shias say actually God even spoke to Ali,
That's
that's
yeah.
like,
I get that. We're talking on two different planes.
Here's another thing.
I'm saying it.
There's some
Wait, hold on.
No, this is actually very interesting. There's some very fringe Shias that even say that Ali is the essence of God. Like they like that.
The Nusayris or Nasrani? No, yeah, they're the Nusayris and
Right.
I don't want
Shupi is leaving. Bye, Shupi. It was great having you.
I should be. Yeah, thank you for your comments, and I appreciate the comments about Faith Goldie. I completely agree with you.
Right.
Okay, so anyway, let's move on from the Shia-Sunni conflict. Hopefully, we're gonna solve that. Not this podcast, not next, but the podcast after that. We'll have that whole conflict solved. I promise. I promise on Allah, by Allah. I swear by Allah.
Right.
And have that solved. Okay, so Killian, I don't know if you have heard of Stephanie Tessier. She works for XMNA and has a heartbreaking story. She's very articulate. She was also on the Lala Dagash podcast. Have her on. I have heard of Stephanie. I think she did one of those videos, didn't she?
Who?
Stephanie? I'd have to look at. I'd have to confirm, but I think she did one of those. The XMNA has this great series of videos, that show the personal stories of many
experts. We should have Muhammad
ex-Muslims.
Sayyid on at some point.
Yeah, I actually talked to him about that in New York, so I'm gonna reach out to him too.
Okay.
So yeah, and yeah, I would love to reach out to her, Killian. So yeah, send me more information. You have my email, so just send me some information. I'll reach out to her. More about this Horowitz guy. Okay, Sang Tessier. Hold on, check there. Okay, so again, Islam Zionist, regressive left, alt-right, and geopolitics, ISRAG. We're just going to call you ISRAG now. Are you guys familiar with Ken Wilber's solution to the current culture war we're having between pre-modernism, modernism, and postmodernism? If not, I could recommend checking him out. I'm not familiar with it. I think Armin, you're writing this down, Ken Wilber? Or are you Googling it?
No, somebody in the Facebook chat said hi. I'm just saying hi back. I want to make sure. I just want to make sure Facebook people know that we're looking at the error as well.
Yeah, the current culture war. Yeah, I don't know. Like whenever I hear about this, a lot of these buzzwords: pre-modernism, modernism, postmodernism. It's I guess I'm suffering from a sort of exhaustion.
Here's postmodernism just means like facts don't matter and definitions could be anything that you want.
Yeah, like for example, like Jordan Peterson, what he talks about, a lot of it is like very postmodernistic. But even though he rails against it, I know. Yeah, but a lot of the the truth isn't really truth. Facts aren't really reality.
Right.
You go from order and chaos.
I see it as anti-logic.
It's actually classically postmodernist. If you look at a lot of his writing, it's very, very
No, I'm just saying postmodernism is basically an anti-logic.
Andrew Sullivan, when he had the Dish blog a long time ago, and I still wish he'd bring it back somehow. He had a thing called Poser Alert, like POSEUR, Poser Alert, and he would find like sort of postmodern type writings, and he would quote them, and they were hilarious. So actually, if we go to Google and just search Andrew Sullivan Dish Poser Alert, a whole bunch of them will show up, and there's people writing really eloquently about things like Big Macs and shit like that, like very, very seriously. So it's a lot of fun to see. But yeah, I'm kind of exhausted with a lot of these buzzwords, and I feel like a lot of it is just we talk about it and talk about it and talk about it, and the more you talk about it, the more.
Next question, because we're
like I am right now.
Yeah.
Armin's like, don't talk about talking about things.
Oh my God! All right, let's go. Next.
Yeah. Lots of not a lot of Reza fans here, Reza Hassan fans. Good. So yeah, I knew it would be risky recommending his book. Killian saying, did you ever watch Reza's show? It was embarrassingly bad. Yeah, actually was. I posted when he went and met that sort of like fringe Hindu group, and he ate the cooked brains of a human being. So he engaged in cannibalism right there on the CNN show.
That's haram. That's very anti-Islamic, by the way.
So even though I thought it was, there were parts of the show that were interesting, Most of it was like really bad. I agree with you.
Oh,
But that show got canceled because he said something negative about Trump on Twitter, and CNN canceled his show. So before Roseanne, before any of these people, like Reza was the guy who got a show canceled. I completely disagree with that. I don't think it should have been canceled as bad as it was. I think that was insane.
by the way, Asif on the Facebook chat is saying if we're gonna have Salman Rushdie or Ibn Waraq on the show, and also Wahid is asking if we ever gonna have a Baha'i on the show.
So the Baha'i, we got a question about that. I did make a note of it. So it's going to be on. We have a lot of stuff lined up very soon. So
But let's go.
it'll probably be a
Let's
while.
just answer a little bit faster because we need to end this soon, and there's so many.
Okay.
good
The other people that you mentioned Ibn Waraq. I hung out with Ibn Waraq in New York. He's been a hero of mine since I was very young. I read his book, Why I'm Not a Muslim, in I think the late '90s or something.
No, just say yes or no. Yes, are we gonna have them on?
I will reach out to him. Yes.
Okay.
Let's
And
see if he does it.
also Salman Rushdie, let's reach out to him as well.
Well, yeah, reach out to him. He's I don't know how available he is though, but we'll reach out to him.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, quick heads up. We have Sam Harris on the podcast. We have Sam Harris on the show September 26th at 11 a.m. Pacific time, which is 2 p.m. Eastern time. So make sure you tune in for that. More about the Hindu thing. Okay, let's keep going. We have Armin, you got another 20 minutes or something?
Yeah, let's try to get all the questions in 20 minutes. Don't send any more questions so we can finish this. Just let's go through all the remaining questions very fast.
What do you think about Petra being the real birthplace of Islam claim? So this is actually coming from I think the Tom Holland. I mentioned Tom Holland, these guys. I don't know. I think that there's some evidence for it, but I am skeptical. I mean, that's one of the things.
Depends on what you mean by birthplace, because you could, if farther back you go, I mean, the
idea is that Mecca, it wasn't Mecca at all. It was.
Oh my God, that's an extreme claim. Okay, extraordinary claim.
Yeah.
Extraordinary.
No. But actually, this is you'll find this interesting. That the reason that they really painted Mecca retrospectively, like the caliphs and all these other whoever it was came afterwards, the Isnads, they painted Mecca as a birthplace when they rewrote the history, is because that would give them an excuse to make it seem like a miracle. Like, how did Muhammad know about the Jewish and the Christians?
It seems like a conspiracy.
Because Mecca was in the middle of the desert, right? So how would he have been able to?
Don't we have the Byzantines and the Persians actually have mentioning the war, we have a lot of I think we have historical letters showing that there was these Arabs came from the Arabian deserts, attacked them.
They were all historians who were located in Syria, Israel, like that area right now. Right. So that's the thing.
I mean, there was the Persians and the Byzantines were using proxy people within this area against each other. Don't we have all these records? I mean, I'm not saying it's not. I just said everything I heard before from actual secular historians seems to be against all of this. But I don't know. I haven't looked into the evidence. It's just
even the people who originally wrote about that were Patricia Crone and Michael Cook. They have kind of retracted it. At least I don't know if they retracted that part of the claim. But yes, it is a possibility. It's interesting to look into. But
it's extraordinary. You need to have okay, but it would be amazing if it's true. It seems like a very bizarre.
Yeah.
Okay, but
that is a really interesting question. Okay. You have a Baha'i in your podcast, so we already covered that. Armin, where did you get the new background? It looks great. Armin, do you want to talk about where you got the new background?
No.
Well, okay. I mean, it's actually, guys, it's the same background as the old one, but do you remember the dress?
It's a different place. It's going to be the same. I mean, when I'm at home, it's going to be the old background. This is
no. You guys just seeing it differently. Remember the dress, the golden and white versus black and red? That's what's happening. So people, depending on your whatever the way the light's hitting your retinas.
Right. This is just a different location.
It's a different location.
Yeah.
Undisclosed.
Yeah.
You should have Mustafa al-Islam on. I know that guy. I like him. Yeah, we could do that too. Okay, culture war, more about that. We covered it. Dan Gibson. It would be nice to have him on the show. Dan Gibson. I know Dan Gibson is
okay, just to keep a note of it, let's go to the next question. Let's keep it
right. I think if he's the Atlantic writer, the guy who wrote that thing about the secular rescue thing, then if I'm memory serving me correctly, then yeah, sure, I think it'd be cool. How hard was it to get Sam to come on your podcast? Does he have a lot of free time? Answer. Well, first of all, it was I wrote to him. He said yes. I've known Sam for a very long time, since
Yeah.
like at least 2013.
It
So
was.
I've
It's not. It
corresponded
wasn't
with him.
hard, but I mean, it's Ali. So Ali is Sam knows Ali, but he was
Yeah, yeah.
very. But
So we've been.
yeah, but
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
very
So it's fine.
generous. He was very generous. He just
He was very generous with his time, like Steven Pinker was too.
yeah.
He doesn't have a lot of free time.
No.
No, but which is why it's happening at the end of September. But of course, I mean that kind of is a case for a lot of us right now. Obviously, we're doing a lot of things, which is a good thing. It's a good thing. Oh, okay. Shit. Okay, yeah. Just us clown. Okay, I'm reading these comments aloud now, which I probably shouldn't do. Okay, I was curious. When I go to watch there's a Penguin philosophy video, I see an insane amount of dislikes.
Oh,
Okay.
because people want free content, and it's very expensive to make these events. So you
Oh,
need
are
to,
they pissed because you haven't put out the Jordan Peterson, Sam Harris thing? That's why they're pissed.
yeah, they just don't know how complicated it is and what goes behind it, and they're wondering why they have to pay for it, but they don't know how expensive it is to make these events and how much the speaker fees are and how much the venue fees are, and if they don't charge for it, you're not going to be able to continue making events like this. So
Yeah, that's
they just feel entitled to free. Like you go ahead and you put so much time and energy and money and funds into making these events, and they feel like they're entitled to it for free, which is weird.
yeah, yeah. I gotta say this. So guys, and this generally goes for podcasts in general. I mean, this is obviously it takes time. We love what we do, and honestly, we were doing this for free at one point. We would, but we can do it better. We can get better guests on. You've seen that through the evolution of this podcast. You know,
Right.
we've had amazing, and all of this stuff. It really happens because, you've got to put in. There's resources that take it. That it takes to make it happen. With Pangburn, you've seen those events. I mean, you've seen the kind of chairs that they have. They look like they're sitting on thrones. You know, you've seen the kind of venues.
It's not the chairs the chairs were just part of the venue.
I'm talking about from a PR perspective, like, in terms of
Right.
people who are looking at it. Like it's every detail has been thought, like really, really well thought, and those are amazing events. And the thing is, it's very easy to kind of look at it and say, hey, everything on YouTube's free. Why can't I get this free? And so I get that. I would think that at least for a certain amount of time, they do have a right to kind of try and
Right.
at least get
I
some
mean,
of their.
here's the thing. There's a reason why there's nobody else doing these events like in this scale, because nobody has figured out how to make it financially feasible, right? You have to, because these are very expensive, right? And the interesting thing is that all of these events are going to be released for free at some point, right?
That's the idea. Yeah.
The thing is that they just have to have they just want it now, and they don't understand that just having the patience. If you don't want to pay for it, if you're patient and let people that want it now pay for it, that's the difference between just having 2 events and going bankrupt rather than having 10 or 12 events or 20 events or unlimited events, because of your patience, we will give you your free content eventually, but because you're waiting, that it's worth the cost to have more events, because now we have a model that makes this financially possible to continue, right? So
Yeah.
getting
So, I
it
mean,
late means that you're going to have more of it. Isn't that a good deal?
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, and so you have the organization of the event, even the video editing and all of that, getting the sound, getting everything right. I mean, it's a very, very big thing. Okay, so and by the way, some of the speakers that you guys get, like they're not free speakers. Like they're expensive.
Ooh, yeah, I have
That's
no
it.
idea.
Also another thing. Okay, anyway, so let's keep going. Arn is asking, Sam Harris, Pinker et al. Have come under lots of criticism for not calling out right-wingers and not calling out sexual harassment by prominent atheists. What do you think about this? I actually think that.
Wait, Sam
think,
Harris was warning us about right-wingers before right-wingers became a thing. Again,
yeah, he did. I think that
he
Sam
was like
has been.
he was in his book, or read his book. He was like, "Hey, people, if we don't speak about these things, this is going to become the rise of the right-wing nut jobs. I'm warning you." And he was like, people were like, "Oh, so you're saying they're right?" And him like, "No, I'm not saying they're right. I'm just saying you don't give them the monopoly over speaking about these things. This is going to be and this was before Trump era. This was before all of this. So he was
He actually
talking
wrote about it in 2006. Yeah.
he was talking about it before anyone else was talking about it.
And he has, even though he has a lot of fans and stuff. I mean, there a lot of these guys, and me included, believe it or not, even now, right now, I have a lot of like really far right-wing people because they're like, oh, he criticizes Islam, so I'm going to follow him. It's come down a little bit, thankfully, but it still happens a lot. So all of us get
well,
that.
I mean, it's not
But
thankfully. I mean, I'm hoping that I have right-wing followers because I want them to like. I mean, Muslims are right-wing followers
no,
as
no,
well.
okay. So I agree with that.
We can change people's opinions. We shouldn't just
Yeah, no, no.
dismiss people as right. I mean,
Yeah,
right, by the way, we have to. We
no,
shouldn't say,
let me clarify.
Let's clarify something else. We shouldn't say right-wing. We should say like far right because not right-wing doesn't mean bad. Like right-wing shouldn't be used as an insult. Right-wing, left-wing. We have rational people on all sides. I think what people mean when they people are using right-wing and alt-right interchangeably, or right-wing and far-right interchangeably. Not all right-wing is far-right. Not all right-wing is alt-right. But go on. Yeah.
I think the only problem is like the mainstream right-wing right now, the mainstream, because they're in power and they're, and everything like that. A lot of people interchangeably use it. Let me clarify. I didn't say that I don't want those followers. I said thankfully a lot of them are seeing that that's not what I'm about. Right. So they've learned that I'm not aligned with that kind of stuff. But in any case,
and also not all left-wing is far left. Not all left wing is also, social justice warrior.
Yeah. Hashtag not all.
Hashtag not all. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that Sam has been consistent. Unlike a lot of other people, like I know Dave Rubin, a lot of his Patreon followers tend to be Trump supporters. So even though he wants to talk about criticizing everything and calling out bad ideas, he will never, very rarely criticizes Trump, if at all. Sam Harris is the exact opposite. I think Pinker is the exact opposite as well. I think a lot of times they just don't want to engage in the very, very sort of fringe things. A lot of the names that I hear, hey, why don't you talk about this person, that person? I haven't really heard of them. I'm pretty sure Sam hasn't heard of them either. So as for calling out sexual,
even if you address so many things, there's going to be stuff that's going to be left out. You can't just be like, go ahead.
Yeah. As far as calling out sexual harassment by prominent atheists, Sam actually...
how come you haven't called out sexual harassment? Okay, really? Okay, I'm going to call out murder as well now, rape. Okay, I condemn rape, murder, putting houses on fire, kicking babies. I condemn that as well.
But there's also another thing. No, I think that what he or she is talking about is sexual harassment by prominent atheists. I think they're talking about the Lawrence Krauss issue. The Lawrence Krauss event that was happening with Sam, Lawrence ended up not doing it. The other thing is Jerry Coyne actually very publicly came out on his blog against Lawrence Krauss and said, I'm dissociating with him. And Sam backed that up. He retweeted it, and he hasn't been associating.
Yeah,
with
I mean.
So there's so he has called out sexual harassment.
But even though if they have called it out, I think it's okay for them to call it out because I think they know stuff that we don't know. I just hope that people are not calling stuff out without actually knowing what actually has happened. Because I don't feel comfortable calling that out. I mean, I think Sam might have been in a different position that he knows things that maybe we don't. That he makes them feel like, okay, I'm going to call this out, right? But I think for people like us, calling something out like that is irresponsible.
Yeah,
because
there's certain things that I kind of know too. There's a couple of things. So those places I've called it out, but other things I would want to know more. Right. So Zahra is asking, why do you feel the live and let live doesn't work for you? Huh? Actually, we're all about live and let live. Like just live.
Let and let live. No, wait. Okay, so when people say let and let live, they usually mean something else. They usually mean like don't question people's opinions. We're like, how is me questioning your opinions is stopping you from living, right?
Yeah, that's part of my living, like questioning opinions. I'm not telling you not to have your opinions. Yeah. I'm not banning your opinions. Right. I want to. I've repeatedly said I do want Islamists and I want jihadists coming up and speaking in universities alongside Richard Spencer and all these other guys too. I want to have this dialogue. I want it out in the open. Let's have it. Let's have it out.
Like people ask me this, like, why can't you just let people believe what they want? And like, when did I force them not to? Like, what? Like, did I? First of all, it's impossible to force somebody not to believe in something. Even if you could force them to say they don't believe it, but you can't really force anybody to not. But like, people are going to believe. People are a slave to their ideas. Like you can't force them to not be Muslim if they still think there's a God and Allah. But when do we go out and put like guns, on people's heads and say like denounce Islam? Like no, we're just putting out content where we are. If people are noticing our content, it's because they're coming to us. We're not going to them. We're not forcing our content on them. Let them believe. Like when did we force people not to believe what they want?
Exactly.
It's an invitation to consider things. Okay, it's
Yeah.
an invitation. You can just say no to the invitation. If I mean, this is
And the thing is,
and
they all talk
it's
about it
bizarre.
all the time, so we're
Yeah,
talking about
I
it
mean,
too.
it's
Everybody
bizarre
talks
that
about
it's
it.
coming from Muslims and Christians because this whole that was part of Islam, or evangelizing is part of
Proselytization, yeah,
proselytizing is part of
evangelism.
Christianity, and we're not against. A lot of people are like, oh, you're now like Muslims or Christians because now you're evangelizing atheists. That's not the part of Islam or Christianity we're against. Islam should be able to invite people to Islam. Christians should be able to invite people to Christianity, right? We,
Hmm.
we just put all the ideas in the free marketplace of ideas, and let's see which one of them wins. And if you don't like it, don't listen. Salman Rushdie one time said that if you're offended by a book, or if you don't like a book, just don't fucking read it. Okay, if somebody is coming and shoving our books and like putting it in your face, or coming to your mosque and shouting there is no God, then then you have a point. We'll call that out. Like, don't force your content on other people.
Okay.
Right? Yeah, but go on.
Yeah, we got that. And now, have you watched The Sacred City by Dan Gibson, where he explains his Petra claim? No, but I would love to watch that. I'll check it out.
I think because it sounds so out of this world and interesting and crazy, more people are going to believe it, because it's just people love this kind of stuff, right? But go on.
Okay. So more sort of follow up from. I think there's another conversation going on here. So guys, I'm going to take just, I think, 2 or 3 more questions, and then we're going to wrap it up. Which of Ibn Waraq's books do you recommend? I've read Why I'm Not a Muslim. Which should I read next? I actually am sorry. That's the one that I've read. I've read Why I'm Not a Muslim, and I read it a long time ago.
Let's bring him on, and he could tell us.
Yeah, he can tell us more. I think he has a book called Leaving Islam. He also has a book called Virgins, What Virgins? So he's got a whole bunch of other things. He's written several books, but yeah, Why I'm Not a Muslim is his sort of seminal work that is historic. I actually used when I was, and this is a really quick point, when I was writing my book, a lot of the arguments that he used in Why I Am Not a Muslim were arguments that have been countered by many of for example, the Ahmadiyya Muslim apologists. And I have engaged with him and argued with him a lot over the last few years. So I tried to preempt those counter arguments when I wrote my book. So I tried to go a little bit further than that. So I think that if you read both of them, that would be kind of interesting. If you read his book after that, my book.
Zahra in the live chat, I met her in Sydney. She has actually she's an activist, and she has a cool story. We might want to bring her on the podcast at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, she's saying not attacking individuals, but like, let's say the Allah is a gay one. I totally supported that, and I wasn't surprised if it offended individuals. Guys, one thing, there's this issue that when people say something provocative, there's an immediate reaction. They're like, oh my God, this is upsetting a lot of people. We need to back down. Never go by immediate reaction. There is absolutely nothing, no big change in history that ever happened that did not immediately offend loads of people. Suffrage, women's right to vote, offended a majority of people. Civil rights offended a majority of people. Gandhi was assassinated. Harvey Milk was assassinated. MLK Jr. was assassinated. Any kind of idea, good or bad, that has been transformative has always, in the immediate short term, generated a lot of opposition. So if you think that you're right, you got to stick to your gun and not go by immediate reaction. So, even if people are upset by things or they're offended, it doesn't make a difference. What makes the difference is whether you believe what you're saying is true and you want to convince other people of it. So just be patient. Then let's go on. Let's take 2 more questions. More about Sam and all right. Sorry guys, I'm kind of skipping over some of these. Should tolerance be towards the other be a requirement? Yeah, this is about tolerating. Okay, what do you think about tolerating intolerance? Many radicals are very intolerant against others. Do they deserve tolerance?
Yeah, I think they deserve tolerance even if they're intolerant.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between. When we talk about tolerance, we're not talking about conversational tolerance, right? We're not talking about when people say certain things and they shouldn't be countered, and we should just accept everybody's ideas and beliefs. We should accept people's right to believe what they want.
We
should
right to
not
believe
necessarily,
and right to express, but
not the beliefs themselves. We don't have to respect or tolerate the beliefs themselves if we don't think they're worthy of it.
We challenge the beliefs. This is pretty easy. Okay, You tolerate them having the beliefs. You tolerate them expressing the beliefs. You don't tolerate, but you fight against it. You challenge those beliefs, and you don't. And the things that you should not be tolerated is any action that will basically remove other people's freedom or harm anybody, right? So it's pretty straight. I don't understand. We've been saying this so long. I don't know if it's all right. So forget Muslims, forget extremist Muslims. Just look at somebody from KKK, right? We accept the fact that they can have these beliefs. Nobody can force them out of their beliefs. We accept the fact that they can go out and promote their views. Nobody should stop them from promote their views, but their views should not go unchallenged, right? Their views should not go unchallenged. We should go out and fight. If their views are spreading, we need to go out and, as you know. The thing is that the worst you can do in fighting against an idea is victimize the people that believe those ideas, because that actually helps their cause. I mean, we've been saying this for a very long time. It just seems like broken record.
So I think let's make this the
last question. Maybe give them. Is there an episode for more detail for this question? Do you have any episode recommendations for this?
For the tolerance.
The tolerance one.
Yeah, we've talked about it a lot. Oh man, there's one on free speech that we did with Ubaid Omar a long time ago.
Yeah. What about the one that's a good one. And what about the one with Asadullah? I think that was also, we talked about that.
Yeah, Asadullah, that was good too. Yeah.
Asadullah, yeah, okay.
Okay, so so we're gonna do two more questions. Theo Mackey is asking, what do you think of Ben Shapiro saying facts don't care about your feelings and going on and on about Judeo-Christian values, giving us democracy and abolition, human rights? I agree with you. I mean, the guy goes around with a kippah on his head everywhere, and then he's always talking about when you ask him about revelation, he's like, no, I think revelation is a way to go to get to the truth. That I don't know. He has a lot of sort of fact-based views on things like homosexuality and all the stuff that are totally informed by his belief in revelation.
I'm promoting the idea of having him do an event with Matt on Penguin Philosophies. Matt versus
I would love to do that.
On God and religion. That would be amazing.
By the way, Sophia. So I don't know. I don't get that. There's also another thing he talked about, social justice, and he said that social justice doesn't really. It's an evil term because anytime you have should just be justice, and if you have to put social in front of it, that means that you're trying to dilute the whole justice thing. I'm paraphrasing, but I was thinking the same thing applies to religious freedom, right? You could say, well, why need the religious? Freedom should be freedom. If you're putting a qualifier in front of it, you're trying to dilute the whole idea of freedom. A lot of his stuff doesn't make sense to me. Anyway, go on.
All right. So last comment, not question. Sophia is saying very excited for Sam Harris. I think she's talking about having Sam Harris on the show. So just the last reminder to everybody, don't miss that. September 27, right?
Yeah. September 26th. Armin, don't miss that.
Oh, 26.
Yeah. Armin's going to show up a day later. He's like, hey, what happened? I was going by the Islamic calendar.
Let me make sure. This is gonna be the most important event.
It's on your calendar, Armin. Don't worry. It'll be good.
Okay. Okay. Good.
So, all right. One last question that I think is good is, what do you think about Sufis? Most Sunnis in Turkey consider themselves Sufis. They're not that much different from Shias. That's kind of something we haven't really gotten into a whole lot on this podcast.
Yeah, actually, they're very different. Okay, so Sufis had different relationship with Sunnis and Shias throughout history, depending on the political climate at the time. There was a time that they were mostly and Shias. Actually, there are Sufis that are more closer to Sunnis. And there are Sufis that are closer to Shias as well, but they don't call themselves Sufis because for a very long time Shias looked down upon Sufis as close to Sunnis, so they call themselves like Irfan. They don't call it Sufism. So it's kind of basically Sufism but with a different branding. But that's a very big topic. Sufism is a huge topic. It's basically the summarized version of it is mysticism, Islamic branch of mysticism. right?
It's like the Kabbalah of Islam. Yeah.
Right. And mysticism in general is they all look very much like each other. They're all like just based on, I mean, it's hard to pin it down because it's supposed to be very vague and very like not based on logic, and it's a very dangerous ideology, you know, even though it doesn't kill people. A lot of people kind of suggest it as a way as a reformed version of Islam because it doesn't, but it's very dangerous. It's actually is responsible for the end of the Islamic Enlightenment movement. Ghazali used his Sufi ideology to basically fight against logic, fight against philosophy, fight against naturalistic science, and that was very damaging. That took the Islamic world. Yeah, but go on.
No. My view is this: it's not as dangerous, but it is just as false. So it's dangerous in the sense that it's false.
I would argue that it could be more dangerous, but
because it's false, right? So I think that what happens in Pakistan, especially, I've seen a lot of people who
because
read the
it's
Quran,
false and it doesn't look as violent, so it could get away with shit. You know what I mean?
No, but you know what happens in Pakistan? A lot of young people read the Quran and they're like, oh, okay, I don't agree with this stuff. Sufism is like, they're like, okay, I'm just a Sufi, because Sufis kind of look at the Quran as just this like, well, it's an airy kind of thing. They don't take it very seriously at all. But anyway, okay. How are the families doing? The families are doing great. Dia Khan, do you want to bring her in? I haven't seen her new movie, but I saw her old movie about Islam's non-believers, and I thought that was amazing. Yes, I would love to reach out to her, so I'll consider that for sure. And I think that is
good job. We did well.
That is it.
We finished almost all the questions, I think.
Yeah. Oh, one last one. Are you guys active with XM&A? I know Armin's a member. I just had dinner with a bunch of Toronto XM&A people last night, and I had a fantastic time.
I'm a proud active member.
Yeah. So I've done one of their events. I was going to do the one in Toronto, but then that got canceled for obvious reasons. And then with the university, like they pulled out of it. Then we had dinner with the Toronto chapter of XM&A. Loved it. It was a lot of fun.
Bye guys. Bye Theomaki.
Okay.
Bye. Zahara is going to sleep. Thank you for staying up for this. Beach. Love having you on the live chat always. NCROC is saying thank you. ARNNN. Mars Chang always. Mars is always a delight to have here. Sang. Theomaki. Islam Zionism and that big username which
Israg. Yeah.
Okay, that guy. Thank you. You're always fun to have here as well. Who else? Yeah.
Awake. Oh my. Everybody. You guys all know who you are. There's loads of you, so I don't think we can say your name. That'll take another
specialist, generalist. All you guys are awesome. Thank you, Daniel Yerke. Yeah.
Secularjihadist.com. Go on there. If you liked what you heard here and you're not a patron, you want to watch video versions of all the conversations that we've had with all of these people that we talked about, then go to patreon.com/SJME or just go to secularjihadist.com. There's a link there. Sign up. You'll get access to it for as little as $1. You don't even have to pay like crazy. And if you don't want to do that, that's still perfectly cool. Go out to iTunes. You can get all of the episodes over there. You can listen to them for free. Those are audio only though.
And we had more Facebook activity in the live chat as well. So thank you for Fiona and Sophia and also Asif there. So this good.
Yeah.
All right,
guys.
Bye.
See ya. I'm gonna call it a night and see you soon.